Okay, we're on to number 4 here. And so what number 4 is going to talk about, it does a good job right at the top of the review. You can read here. Right? It talks about describing what happens when you add or subtract. These guys are all the same stuff. And then multiplying and dividing are the same. Okay, so what happens when you do that to data? So they give us this example. A group of Australian students were asked to estimate the width of their classroom in feet, use a dot plot and summary statistics to answer the following questions. So look, if you ask Australians, they're going to measure in meters, right? And so what happens, or from feet, whichever way, what happens when you try to convert from feet to meters? Well, you have to use this equation here that says, look, every 1 meter is the same as 3.28 feet. Okay, and so if what they did is measured in, let's see, how would the shape of distribution find that? So they started in feet, okay, and you have to change it to meters. What is that going to do to all your data points? Well, let's just take a small example. Let's say that we measured 10 feet. Okay, well, what we would do, simple math tells us that we would have to divide, okay, by 3.28 to get back to feet. So remember, maybe in some math class, you did it what's called a unit multiplier. 1 meter is the same as 3.28 feet. And so you would have to divide. So the point here is that what happens when you take all of your data and you divide it by 3.28? Okay, what does that do to everything? Well, in the textbook, right, you can always go back. You have this book. It summarizes it for you. It says right here, what happens when you multiply or divide by a number? It's going to change, you guys, it's going to change everything. Measures of center, right? Mean, median, quartiles. It's also going to change spread. Okay, the only thing it doesn't change is the shape. Okay, and so this question here says specifically, suppose we converted, how would the shape of the distribution be affected? Find the mean, median, standard deviation, and IQR for the transformed data. Okay, so let's answer that piece by piece. So we have shape. You would say stay the same. Okay. They also want us to find mean, median. What else do they want? Standard deviation, IQR. Okay, so let's start with the mean. So if you look at your summary statistics, it tells us the mean is 43.70. And so you would do 43.70 and divide by 3.28. Your median was listed as 42 divided by 3.28. Standard deviation was given as 12.5 divide by 3.28. And IQR is quartile 3 minus quartile 1, right? And so what you would have to do is take quartile 3 and divide that by 3.28 and subtract quartile 1, 35.5 divided by 3.28. Okay, for sake of time, I'm not going to do the division for you, but that's what you would to go through and do. Okay, all right, so then for part B, this is A. For part B, it says the actual width of the room was 42.6. Suppose we calculated the error in each student's guess as follows. You take their guess and then you subtract this amount. Find the mean and standard deviation of the errors. So all you're looking for is mean and standard deviation, and you're trying to figure out what happens when you subtract. So on the page before, right, it says here that if you add or subtract, what changes? Well, the center, measures of center, will change, but what does not change is the shape or measures of spread. Okay, and so to answer this question for B, you're trying to find the mean. Well, the mean was 43.70. You definitely have to subtract 42.6 to get your answer, because when you add or subtract to data, you definitely do have to do that to the mean. But the second thing they ask you to find was the standard deviation. And what you would say here is it stays the same since adding. Okay, so that's just a quick review on what changes when you add a number to all your data. or subtract, right? Add and subtract, same thing, versus multiply, divide. If you want to review those two things, it's on page 94 and 95 in the textbook. Okay? All right.